Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Michael Talks Sports and Law, the channel where we discuss the laws and the rules of the sports that we love to participate and also we like to watch as well. But before we get started, if I could please ask you to hit that subscribe button and the like button if you're enjoying this content. And if you can leave some feedback as well, let me know what you think of the channel. Let me know if there's anything that you would like me to improve on the channel. That would be greatly appreciated as well, because I like to find out, my viewers, what they like and what they don't like about the channel as well. So please, leave some feedback when you can. So what are we going to talk about today? Think about this question. Why is it possible that when a sports person is tested positive for a banned substance, they are not arrested and prosecuted under UK law? If you're interested in finding out the answer to this, please stay tuned. So if you've been watching my channel and you watch my introductory channel, you'll probably found out that, I actually mentioned the fact that I enjoy sports. I watch all types of sports. I even participated in sports myself when I was younger. I played football, played cricket at a pretty good level as well. And probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed sports is because my dad was a very big sports enthusiast as well. He would spend hours, possibly days, sitting in front of the TV watching, watching all types of sports. Half of the sports he actually watched, he didn't actually even know the rules to it, but he just found, it very relaxing just to sit there and enjoy the games he watched. When I was actually preparing for this video, I was actually trying to think of when the first occasion I heard of a major sports person being found at doping, basically had their sample tested for a banned substance. And the first occurrence that has actually stuck to my mind is the 1988 Seoul Olympics, the 100-meter final with Ben Johnson. Here you had Ben Johnson lining up alongside some really great names, Linford Christie, Carl Lewis, Calvin Smith, Dennis Mitchell, and some other really good athletes as well. And the 100-meter final started, and Ben Johnson obliterated the whole field in world record time. It was unbelievable. He absolutely annihilated them. And I thought to myself, this guy is absolutely brilliant. And, because back in those days, the American sprinters were the ones that dominated the sport. Although you had Linford Christie, who was from Great Britain, who was also in, probably the top 3, top 4, best 100-meter sprinters. The Americans always dominated. You had Carl Lewis, who had won, multiple golds in sprinting. Calvin Smith, I think, who was the first person to break the 10-second barrier in 100 meters. So there were 100-meter sprinting, 200-meter sprinting was generally dominated by the Americans. So here you had Ben Johnson from Canada, who came along and he absolutely obliterated him. However, a few hours later, it was found out that Ben Johnson himself had tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug. He was stripped of his gold medal. He had his new world record wiped from history, and he was sent home in shame. I was devastated. And I also thought to myself, was he the only one? Or was there other people that were actually doing what he had done? In documentaries, this actual race was actually dubbed the dirtiest race ever. I'm not too sure why, because unless I'm wrong, but I wasn't aware of any other athletes in that lineup that had tested positive for a bad substance. So it would be, if anyone wants to chip in and explain why this was dubbed the dirtiest race ever, feel free to. Okay. And also there have also been some documentaries where regarding Ben Johnson and this infamous race, and there was like a before and after footage of him, and before the Olympic Games, Ben Johnson, he was a lean person, not very muscular but very lean, okay, and then leading up to the Olympic Games, the guy bulked up so much, muscles all over the place, so it was clear he was taking something, but it was a shock. It was a shock. So my question that I asked before, why is it possible that someone who takes a banned substance, why are they not prosecuted in the UK? And the simple answer is that doping in this country isn't seen as a criminal offence. It's not illegal to dope. It is the responsibility of the sports bodies to ensure that their sport is kept clean. Okay, but it is not a criminal offence. You cannot be arrested for it unless you are found to have supplied it or trafficked it, which is a totally different matter. But actually taking it and being tested positive for it means that you'll just go through the process of being banned, if anything else. Okay. In 2017, the UK government actually looked into if they should actually criminalise, doping, because other countries such as France and Germany, I think even Australia, have actually criminalised doping, and you can actually go to prison if you've tested positive for a banned substance. So there was a review where the UK government spoke to experts and judicial people, and it was found out that there was enough systems in place to protect integrity of sports in this country. Therefore, it wouldn't benefit to criminalise doping itself. One other thing that they also mentioned was, because the burden of proof in criminal cases is so much higher, because you have to prove intent. So you will have to prove that the sports person who has been found to have who had tested positive for a banned substance, that he deliberately intended to take that substance. So in a criminal case, that bar is very, very high. But in a civil matter, which is what doping falls under, the balance of probabilities is much lower, so the burden of proof is much lower. So who actually polices doping offences? Well, globally, the organisation that polices doping offences is WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. They were set up in 1999 after the Festina scandal. This scandal was unbelievable. What had happened was the Festina cycling team, one of their trainers, I think was reported to have been stopped by the police, and when they opened the boot of his car, they found an unbelievable amount of performance-enhancing drugs of all types. So the team itself was raided by the police, and it was shut down. Okay, and WADA was set up in order to clean sport. I don't know if it was set up to clean specifically to clean cycling, because it seemed that cycling had a major issue with drugs and performance and banned substances. But yeah, WADA was set up in 1999 because of the Festina scandal. Now, in the UK, the organisation that polices athletes that perform in the UK is known as UKAD, and they are a accredited, a WADA accredited organisation, and they test any athlete that performs in the UK. Now, in order for you to be tested by UKAD, you have to be the sport that you participate in has to be a sport that is accredited by UKAD. So sports like football, boxing, cricket, generally most sports, okay, would need to be accredited, and you could actually be called up for testing at any time, and it's so, and to be honest, to refuse a test, the penalties are actually just as hard as actually being tested positive for a test. So in regards to WADA and UKAD being the organisation that polices polices banned substances, if you go onto their website, you'll see a list of all the banned substances that that athletes need to be aware of. Now, my issue with them is the penalties that are given to athletes if they are tested positive for a banned substance. Now, if we look back in time, since WADA has been set up, you had Lance Armstrong, for instance, a well-known cyclist who decided to, after years of being accused of doping, which he always categorically denied, and if I'm not mistaken, even successfully sued a renowned journalist who had accused him of doping. He then went on to Oprah Winfrey to confess his sins. It was found out that this guy not only took untold amount of different types of performance enhancing drugs, he also was involved in a very, very unique doping program within the cycling team. So but the thing about Lance Armstrong was that he was an idol across the world. Okay, he had faced adversity in regards to fighting cancer. He beat it, and and he went on to win numerous Tour de France titles. But unfortunately, all of those have been stripped because he cheated. But after after all this had been done, he has now been banned from all sports. He's been given a lifetime ban. Now, if we move on to the next person, Canelo Alvarez, the boxer, someone, a legend in my eyes. He absolutely unbelievable. He's fought some really, really tough fights. He's won multiple titles. Okay, however, he's been tested positive for banned substance. Okay, and he was banned from boxing for 6 months. Okay, 6 months he was banned for. Moving on to the next person, the world #1 tennis player, Jannik Sinner. He was found to have tested positive for a banned substance. He was banned for 2 months. Okay, for his banned substance. And now the most recent, we're looking at Mudryk for Chelsea, the footballer, and he's possibly looking up to a 4-year ban for testing positive for a banned substance. So as you can see, there's a lot of inconsistency in the way these bans have been put in place, and the rules, generally the rule is you can automatically be banned for 4 years if it's your first time that you've been tested positive, but this can be reduced if you can prove that you didn't intentionally take it. But what we need to understand is, under these rules, there's a term known as strict liability, and strict liability means that athletes are responsible for what they take into their bodies. Okay, therefore they need to fully explain how a banned substance got into their bodies. Okay, and if they're not able to do that, then they have to be banned for much longer than what they've been banned for. Now, my other issue is, you know, if a darts player was tested positive for a banned substance and was banned for 4 years, then and a boxer took the same type of substance and they were banned for 4 years. One thing I want to know is how can a boxer be banned for the same length of time as a darts player? What we need to consider is the darts player being treated too harshly, or is the boxer being not treated harshly enough? Because, you know, boxing and any type of combat sport is seriously dangerous. Okay, and you know, for a boxer to be tested for performing enhancing drugs, that is unacceptable. Okay, so what do I think should happen to sports people that have been found doping? But before we get to that, I just wanted to mention something that I failed to mention beforehand. There is another agency known as WADA, which is the voluntary Anti-Doping Agency, and they've been set up in order to try and fill in the gaps and the loopholes that have been found within the WADA and UKAD policies. Okay, it's generally aimed at boxing. Okay, but the only issue is with WADA is it is not recognised by UKAD. Okay, so when a boxer is tested positive for a banned substance via WADA, it is up to the Boxing Board of Control to then report that to UKAD, and then UKAD would have to then do their own independent testing to see to see their findings. It is actually ridiculous, you know, and you know this is probably one of the reasons why there was such a you know, the controversies in regards to the Conor Ben when he was tested positive for a banned substance, because this was done through WADA. You know, but you got all these agencies that have been set up in order to protect the integrity of sports, but they can't even bloody work together, which is absolutely ridiculous. You know. Okay, so moving on. So what do I believe should happen to people who are actually being found to have doped? Well, one of the first things I think should be mandatory minimum bans. Okay, but this is based on the risk factor of the sport. So if there's any sports that are associated with risk of life, okay, you know, such as boxing, you know, MMA, you know, even cycling, okay, because if you ever watch some of these cycling events, you know, they're all like bunched up together, and then suddenly people are crashing all over the place, hitting each other, etc. You know, there is a high risk to life in cycling as well. So if a sports person has been found to have been found to be had a positive with a banned substance, okay, if it's a high risk to life sport, okay, I think the minimum ban should be at least 5 to 6 years. Full stop. Okay, that's for the first offence. For the second offence, you're banned for life. There is no space in sport for cheaters. You need to be banned for life. Okay, but like I said, mandatory minimum bans should be put on, should be based on the risk of the sport itself. So, you know, if it's, you know, darts or snooker, for instance, you know, unless, you know, someone takes a banned drug and just goes absolutely nuts and starts hitting people with their snooker cue or throwing darts at people, okay, but generally it's not a very dangerous sport. Okay, so, you know, it will be generally based on the risk factor in regards to how long someone should be banned for. Secondly, I believe any dangerous sport such as boxing, if someone has been had tested positive for a banned substance, okay, they should be charged under a criminal offence, okay. You can call it assault with enhancement if you want, of some sort, okay, but they should be charged for a criminal offence, because really it's similar to being assaulted with a weapon, you know, when you're enhanced by a drug. So, you know, there should be some sort of criminal element to someone who is tested positive, who's a sports person in a dangerous sport. Third, a first suggestion would be the fact that anyone that is tested positive should have their prize money withdrawn. Okay, they shouldn't be getting paid. You know, you shouldn't get paid for cheating. That's just ridiculous. Okay, particularly in boxing. Again, you know, any combat sport, why should you get paid for cheating? It's just absolutely ridiculous. So, you know, forfeiting the prize money should be something that sports people, if you know, the fear of having your prize money taken away from you, may get people to start reconsidering what they're taking into their bodies and making sure that what they do, that they're careful of what they're taking in their bodies as well. Also, one of the other key issues about bans is jurisdiction. So sometimes you may be banned in one country, but you can still perform in another country. That needs to stop as well. You know, if you're banned in one country because you took a performing enhancing drug, you should be banned from performing the sport in all countries. Okay, so any federation that you go to, you're banned. You're banned up to the time that it finishes. Okay, I do understand that sports people, you know, for them, you know, that they need the money to support their families, etc., etc. Okay, but you took a performing enhancing drug, okay, and there are consequences. So therefore, if you're banned in the UK, it means that you're banned in America, you're banned in France, you're banned in Germany, whatever, okay? You're not allowed to participate. You can't use jurisdiction as a way of being able to continue in the sport. Another thing that I think should be, athletes who have tested positive for a banned substance is that there should be a long-term register, okay, where you're named and shamed, okay. You know, basically, your name should be put up, the substance you used, and how long you've been banned for, okay. This should be put on some sort of public register so people can see and people are aware of that, because some of these athletes are idolized by, you know, children. They're idolized by many. So, you know, people need to know, if you're a cheater, okay, you know, people need to know about it. You know, you can't hide behind data protection and stuff like that. You know, you need to be named and shamed because of it. I also believe a medical review needs to be done before you are actually allowed to return back to the game. You know, possibly attend educational programs, you know, even go out there and talk to young people about the dangers of performance enhancing drugs. You know, you need, you know, and you know, making sure that when you do return, that you are picked on. So you're basically tested throughout the whole season. So if you're, I don't know, if you're a footballer, for instance, okay, and you know, for that whole season, you know, you're tested to make sure that you've got nothing in your system throughout that game. And I think this should be enforced. You know, in order. I know people will say, oh, this will cost time. It will take time. It will cost money. But at the end of the day, you're trying to protect the integrity of the sports that we're enjoying and what we watch. And to be honest, in some other countries, I think in France, to be honest, in France, they actually class doping as fraud. You know, because they say that you know, because you're destroying the integrity of the game, it's actually fraud. So which is why it's a criminal offence. So you know, I think the UK need to step up its game in regards to that. So there we have it, guys. End of episode 2. I really do hope you enjoy the content. Please come back and join us for episode 3, where we'll be looking at the controversial transgender in sports issues. But for now, goodbye, take care of yourselves, and see you next time.